The theme of today's video is it worth taking on an apprentice? Is it even worth having staff in a small woodworking, particularly fitted furniture business like mine? So if you follow this channel, you know that I don't just talk about the making of shelves and cupboards like this. I talk about the process of running the business and trying to grow it and get more efficient and all that sort of thing. So I have taken on apprentices, and I want to start this by saying I think apprentices are essential, and I think apprenticing is essential, and we must train people up. And I have taken that seriously, although I think some people that have watched my series on 10 attributes of a good apprentice, I think I came across in that as incredibly demanding and expecting too much of young people. But we do have a background of investing in young people. We got an award for Sheffield Council Apprentice Provider of the Year some years back, and Brady, who came through an apprenticeship, got Apprentice of the Year. So we have taken apprenticeship seriously, but I want to just discuss this thing of, is it really worth taking an apprentice on? The reason I'm raising this now is we had an apprentice for a while, our most recent one. Nothing wrong with the guy, very, very helpful guy. We've had a few people, but I just made an observation that this project I've just finished this yesterday. I did this faster than I've ever done alcoves before. So 9 shelves, a modern fitted cupboard, and a sort of custom desk, pre-sprayed components. But I was on my own because we've lost that latest apprentice. I started at 8 a.m, set everything up, brought all the tools up, brought all the parts up, finished at 5:30, fully finished, corked and everything. It would have been a long day with the clean-up, but I was able to leave that till today because we were working on another project. I say we because on today's work, Graham came and helped me with this because we had some big units to carry in. By the way, if you're wondering what this is just to enable me to communicate with the team when I get calls and stuff from Brady or Graham or Camilla back at the office. Just press that and can respond to them. That's relevant because what I've been thinking about is distractions. So as an estimate, what I found is if I have somebody helping me, I'm probably half as efficient as I would otherwise be, because just having that other person there, part of my brain is thinking, okay, I've got to think of what to give to them next, or I've got to answer their question on this, or I'm just aware of this other person and possibly even their feelings. Maybe they're having a bad day, or I don't know, they've responded badly to something I said. There's all this other stuff, this other dynamic of that person being there, that distracts me. Not least, of course, the specific distractions of having to take my focus off what I'm doing in order to help them or explain something to them. Now, I find with this kind of work, there's so many little decisions to make. Like, do I scribe the back? What's the tolerance that's acceptable if there's a bit of a waviness in the plaster work? How do I do that? Can I just cut that with the rail saw, or am I going to swap the cable over to the planer? But all sorts of things, and even how I go about it. So say if I'm trying to keep someone busy and so I'm going to mark something for them to cut, then if I'm working on my own, sometimes my mark might be a bit sloppy, or I might have put 2 marks on, but I straight away in my head know which part of that mark I intend to cut to, and it's just really quick mark and cut. Give it to someone else, and then there's this whole other layer of time wasting, really, for someone else to be involved. So I'm probably about half as productive. That other person is probably, I would say at a maximum, a quarter as productive as I would have been on my own with the skill and experience that I have doing this kind of work. So with 2 people, I'm maybe at 3/4 productivity compared to it just being me. And to some extent, what I'm finding is that goes even for someone that is more skilled and knows the processes, just because of the distractions and just because I do have to have a say and make a decision on certain things that come up. I can't just do it, I've got to talk about it. And you've got 2 people talking when one person would have just been doing. So as much as I see the necessity of training and apprenticing, and I don't want to come across as someone who's just all about, it's me making money and I mustn't train up the next generation. What I'm saying is it often just doesn't work. on site, with two exceptions on site. The first exception is when you're setting up and when you're cleaning up and putting stuff back in the van. Then it is really fantastic to have a labourer or apprentice, because they can just do that while you crack on with the work, and then you finish the work and everything's mostly in the van. So that's really good. The other exception, because I'm really just talking about installation here, the other exception is if you go right to the other end of the spectrum and you pay a lot more for somebody who has all their own tools, has the experience and the skill to problem solve, and has their own area of work. So if I was just doing this alcove and someone very skilled with their tools was over there was no crossover, we weren't in each other's way, preferably we'd have our own workbench, then you could be really looking at doubling the time. But what I found in the business up till now is if I was to take someone on at that wage with all their tools, then I'd just be destroying all my profit. So that doesn't really work either. I'll tell you what does work. Going back to the video that I recently published, I'm not sure, to be honest, if it will be the last one in the schedule when I put this out, but the one where it's like part 2 of the insight into the home-based woodworking business. As you saw there, what's working for us is we have specific areas of responsibility. So I brought Brady up through an apprenticeship. He was doing all this kind of stuff with me, so he really came to fully understand the process, and it was slowing me down. But the rewards we're now reaping are he really understands the process, and he ended up focusing on the workshop side of things. And that was partly us just realising that his skills and, in a way, his comfort zone was more in the workshop. And then realising, well, if we just have a split where I'm here more and he's there more, then we each have the luxury of focus. And it's taken a long time to get there, because there had to be a lot of him asking me questions, and there still is to some extent, but we've got beyond that hump of it being a time drain to him being so good at what he does there that it's moving the business forward. So similarly with Graham, he is now the expert in the CAD modelling and production drawing side of things. So the way I see the business growing and the efficiency with the current team increasing in order for us to move into more profit is each person sort of goes deeper into their separate area of specialism, rather than us teaming up too much. And this is just what I'm realising from running the business. To me, the most successful team is where everybody has their place and their slightly fenced off area of expertise that they have a certain amount of autonomy in. And thinking about it, this is why I so enjoyed doing the TV work that I recently did. You may have seen that I've been in the background. Well, you won't have seen it on TV, but in the later episodes, I'm in the background of this new Interior Design Masters show on BBC Two. And I've done a bit of work for the George Clark shows. What was so fun for me about that was I could turn up with my tools, do what I was really good at, and the designer was there with the vision, doing that side of things. There was a runner sort of organising, collecting materials and stuff like that. And then you had your painter decorators, and everybody had their place and could focus on what they did best, which was such a relief. And I've said before in a video, even if I was doing 12-hour days, it was like a rest compared to running a business where everything was on my head. And even when I'm making a shelf, I'm thinking about profitability and whatever things I need to order next, and a staff meeting I've got to think of, and all that kind of stuff. So, yes, I think I've got my points across. I really wanted this to be a bit of a discussion starter, and I would be very interested to hear from you if you're running a business doing this kind of work, if you have made a decision to stick on your own, perhaps for some of these reasons, what your experience might have been of that. If you're thinking you should or want to take on apprentice or other staff, I'd just be interested in your thoughts based on what I've said. Or if you've successfully grown to having a few staff, I'd be interested to know what your experience was of that process, and whether you agree with me that it works best when people have a sort of separate defined area of work, or if you've worked it another way. And I think a final point is that it may be, in fact I'm sure it is, partly personality. So I do seem to work better on my own. I've noticed that Brady, in fact, is quite a lot better at continuing his work whilst having someone else to delegate to and to talk to. I had a plumber around at the house who was doing some work for us and had an apprentice and was constantly telling the apprentice, you do this, you do that, and it didn't seem to impact on his work. That's the way I'd love to be. I want to train people up, but I think sometimes you realise your limitations, and I think I've realised that I don't think I can effectively do my work and be training someone whilst I do it, because my brain just doesn't seem to work that way. Which is perhaps why I found this outlet in YouTube, because I love the idea of training people, and if I've got the work done and then I can talk about it, that suits me quite well. Well, I think that really is all I need to say, so do give me your feedback below, and thanks for watching this far. See you next time.